The planet Neareth 4 was a place where silence felt alive. The winds blew through the cracked towers of abandoned cities, carrying dust that shimmered like tiny stars under the pale sun. It was a planet many humans avoided. Dangerous wildlife roamed the open plains, and storms could strike without warning. Yet, for Alex, a young human student from Earth, this was the perfect place for research. Alex had dreamed of exploring alien worlds since he was a child. He had studied xenobiology for years, learning about the different life forms scattered across the galaxy. Neareth 4 was a perfect laboratory for observation, though he had not expected to witness the remnants of war. Smoke still lingered over some cities, and broken ships lay scattered across the plains, abandoned by their crews. Alex adjusted his helmet and checked the scanner on his wrist. The device beeped softly, picking up faint signals. He frowned. "Something is moving," he whispered to himself, though no one was there to hear him. The signal was weak, almost drowned by static, but Alex's curiosity was stronger than his fear. He moved carefully through the rubble, stepping over twisted metal and crumbling concrete. Every sound made him pause. The wind, a falling piece of metal, a distant cry that might have been an animal or something else. He knew he should stay cautious, but he could not ignore the possibility of life. Then he heard it clearly. A soft, weak cry, almost like a whisper. He froze. It was not the wind, and it was not a machine. Someone or something was in trouble. Alex's heart raced as he followed the sound, moving past the wreckage of a collapsed building. There, lying among the rubble, he saw her. She was unlike anything he had ever seen. Her skin had a faint blue-gray hue, marked with lines and patterns that shimmered faintly in the light. Her eyes, large and luminous, were closed, and her breathing was shallow. One of her arms was bent at an unnatural angle, and a jagged piece of metal was embedded in her side. She looked fragile, almost human in her form, yet undeniably alien. Alex's first instinct was to call for help, but there was no one nearby. The scanner showed no other humans, and he doubted any of the planet's patrols would respond in time. He realized with a sinking feeling that if he did not act quickly, she would die here alone. "Okay, I can help you," he murmured, though he did not know if she could understand him. He knelt beside her carefully, avoiding sudden movements. She stirred slightly, letting out a soft hiss. Alex froze again. Her voice, if it could be called that, was unlike anything he had heard. It was sharp and musical, almost like the ringing of tiny bells. "I won't hurt you," he said gently, trying to sound calm. He examined her injuries. The wound on her side was deep, and blood had dried around the edges. Her arm looked badly broken, and there were smaller cuts and bruises over her body. Alex's stomach tightened. He had learned first aid, but he had never treated an alien before. Still, he could not abandon her. Carefully, he pulled out the small medical kit he carried. He cleaned the wound as best he could, using a disinfectant spray and sterile bandages. She flinched at first, but Alex spoke softly, whispering words he hoped she would understand. Slowly, she relaxed, though her eyes remained wary. "Hang on," Alex said. "I'll help you get somewhere safe." He knew he could not carry her far without proper support. The city around them was unstable, and more ruins could collapse at any moment. He looked around, scanning for a shelter. A partially intact building nearby seemed safe enough for now. With careful movements, Alex lifted her, supporting her weight against his chest. She made a soft sound, half a hiss, half a groan, but did not resist. Inside the building, Alex laid her on a flat piece of metal he found among the rubble. He sat beside her, keeping watch. She was small, lighter than a human of the same size, but her presence was powerful. There was something about her, a strength hidden beneath her injuries, something that spoke of courage and resilience. Alex checked the scanner again. There were faint signals in the distance, other life forms, possibly her species, but they were far away. He realized that for now, she was alone, and he was the only one who could help. He took a moment to study her features. Her large eyes were now half open, staring at him with a mix of fear and curiosity. Her hands were delicate, with elongated fingers tipped with small, translucent claws. Her mouth was small, and when she spoke, soft clicks escaped her lips. Alex did not understand the language, but her expression told him enough. She was in pain, confused, and afraid. "I'm Alex," he said softly. "I'm a human. You're safe with me." She tilted her head slightly, studying him. For a moment, Alex thought she might speak. But she only made another soft, clicking sound. Still, he felt a connection forming. Despite the differences in species, despite the fear, there was a spark of trust beginning to grow. The building was not completely safe. Wind howled through the broken walls, and dust fell from the ceiling. Alex used a piece of fabric from his backpack to cover her partially, giving her warmth. She relaxed slightly under the covering, her breathing becoming steadier. Alex allowed himself a small sigh of relief. He spent the next hours tending to her injuries, carefully adjusting bandages, applying ointments, and even trying to massage her broken arm gently. She flinched at first, but allowed him to continue. Her eyes never left his face, watching, calculating, learning. Alex realized something remarkable. Even in her weakened state, she was observing him with intelligence and awareness. By evening, the sun had begun to set, painting the sky in shades of red and purple. The winds had calmed, and the city was eerily quiet. Alex knew he could not stay in the building forever. He needed a more permanent solution, someplace safe where she could heal and where he could communicate with her more effectively. He looked at her lying there, fragile yet dignified. "Don't worry," he said. "I'll find a way to help you. You're not alone anymore." For a long moment she said nothing, only observing him. Then, with a soft, almost imperceptible sound, she moved her hand slightly toward him. It was a small gesture, but to Alex it was monumental. It was trust. It was acknowledgement. Alex felt a surge of determination. He would not fail her. Humans had a reputation for curiosity and courage, for taking risks that others would avoid. But this was different. This was about compassion, about choosing to help someone in need when the odds were against you. He spent the night in the building, keeping watch. The alien rested, her breathing slowly becoming steady. Alex thought about what had brought him here, his desire to learn, to explore, to understand the universe. He realized that sometimes the universe offered lessons far beyond textbooks. Sometimes it offered moments that could define a life. Morning came, and Alex began planning their next steps. He would need supplies, communication devices, maybe even help from his team on Earth. But most importantly, he needed to earn her trust fully, to show her that humans could be allies, not enemies. The alien stirred again. Opening her eyes fully, she looked at Alex, and for the first time, he thought he saw recognition, not just of him, but of what he represented: safety, hope, the possibility that someone cared, even in the middle of a world abandoned by so many. Alex smiled gently. "We'll get through this," he said. "I promise." For the first time, she made a sound that almost resembled a whisper, soft and tentative. It was not words, but it was enough. Enough to show that the bridge between human and alien, between fear and trust, was beginning to form. Outside, the winds of Neareth 4 blew softly, carrying the dust across the ruins. Inside the broken building, a human and an alien faced the uncertainty of the galaxy together. Neither knew what dangers lay ahead, but for the first time, both felt a spark of hope. Alex knew this was just the beginning. Their journey was far from over, but in that moment, he also knew something else. Humans had a way of showing courage, empathy, and determination that could change the course of lives, even on a planet as unforgiving as HFY. And so the story began. Not with war or conflict, but with a simple act of discovery, compassion, and the courage to help someone when it mattered most. The morning sun broke through the cracks of the ruined building, casting long shadows over the scattered debris. Alex sat beside the alien warrior, watching her breathe steadily. Her chest rose and fell with a rhythm that reassured him. Last night had been the first time he felt the weight of responsibility in a new way. Not for himself, but for another being entirely dependent on him. He gently touched her arm, careful not to cause pain. Her broken limb was wrapped with bandages, but it still looked fragile. "We need to move you somewhere safer," he whispered, though he knew she might not understand his words. She looked at him with those large, glowing eyes, a mixture of caution and curiosity shining through. Alex scanned the city ruins around them. The streets were littered with collapsed walls, rusted vehicles, and the occasional skeletal remains of machines long destroyed. He knew he could not stay here. The building was unstable, and storms often swept through HFY without warning. He needed to find a place where she could rest, heal, and most importantly, be safe from anyone who might still be hunting her. He carefully lifted her into his arms again. She stiffened slightly but did not resist. Alex smiled softly. "I've got you," he said. "Just a little farther, okay?" Moving through the ruined streets was dangerous. Piles of rubble blocked the way, and some structures seemed ready to collapse at the slightest touch. Alex kept his eyes open for falling debris and sharp edges. Every few steps, he paused to let her adjust, ensuring she did not feel pain from the movement. She watched him silently, her large eyes tracking every motion. Suddenly, a faint sound reached Alex's ears, a low growl that made the hairs on his neck stand up. He froze. The wind had shifted, carrying the sound from behind a nearby wall. Alex's heart raced. HFY was home to predators, and they often hunted anything moving in the open. He gently set the alien down behind a fallen wall. "Stay here," he whispered. "I'll check it out." She tilted her head, but did not move. Alex crept forward, scanning the shadows. There, moving with silent precision, was a creature he had read about in his research, a scavenger predator with sharp claws and bright reflective eyes. It was much larger than a human, with a long, segmented tail that it used for balance. The creature sniffed the air, its gaze fixed on the scent of life nearby. Alex's mind raced. He had to act quickly. Using his scanner, he activated a small device that emitted a high-pitched sound. The predator froze, tilting its head, confused by the unfamiliar noise. Alex seized the moment. Slowly, he backed away, drawing the creature's attention away from the alien. It hissed, but did not pursue, and after a tense minute, it disappeared into the shadows. Returning to her side, Alex let out a relieved breath. "That was close," he murmured. She tilted her head again, almost as if she understood the danger he had just prevented. Alex smiled, feeling a small victory. Even without words, trust was building between them. They continued moving, taking a route Alex judged safer. His knowledge of alien terrain, gained from textbooks and simulations, helped him anticipate unstable ground and hidden hazards. She watched him carefully, and at times, when he stumbled slightly, she made a soft, clicking sound. It was her way of communicating, a warning, perhaps, or maybe a question. Alex tried to respond with gestures, pointing at dangerous areas and showing her how to step carefully. By midday, they reached the outskirts of the ruined city. Here, the landscape opened into a wide plain, dotted with jagged rocks and patches of strange vegetation. Alex had noticed small caves marked on his map. One of them seemed perfect, sheltered, dry, and high enough to provide a view of the surroundings. He carefully carried her toward it, his arms aching, but his determination unwavering. As they approached the cave, the wind picked up, carrying a distant rumble. Alex looked toward the horizon and saw dark clouds gathering. Another storm was coming. He quickened his pace, knowing that Neareth IV's storms were fierce and fast. Just as they reached the cave, a sharp gust of wind blew sand and small rocks around them. Alex stumbled, but kept his balance, setting her down gently inside the cave. "Safe," he said softly. She looked around the cave, her eyes scanning the walls and floor. She seemed to relax slightly, leaning back against the rocky wall. Alex set down his medical kit and began preparing a more stable resting area for her. Using pieces of fabric from his backpack, he fashioned a makeshift bed and padded it with broken pieces of metal and cloth he found nearby. She observed silently, tilting her head as he worked. Alex noticed the way her eyes reflected the dim light of the cave. There was intelligence there, sharp and calculating, and at the same time there was vulnerability. She was a warrior, yes, but she was hurt, exhausted, and alone. Alex felt a surge of empathy. Humans had a way of reaching out, of connecting, even when it seemed impossible. After arranging the bedding, Alex checked her injuries again. He cleaned the smaller cuts and applied more ointment. Her broken arm had swollen slightly, so he adjusted the bandages. She flinched once, but did not resist. He understood her silence as a sign of trust, however small. "You're doing well," he said, though she might not understand the words. "Just rest, okay? I'll keep you safe." As the hours passed, Alex took stock of their situation. He needed supplies, food, water, more medical materials, but he could not leave her alone for long. He also needed a plan to communicate. Even if she could not speak human languages, they could find ways to understand each other. Humans had a talent for problem-solving, and Alex intended to use every skill he had. By late afternoon, the alien warrior moved slightly, sitting up with Alex's help. Her eyes followed him closely. Alex realized she was observing him in a way that was more than caution. It was assessment. She was judging his intentions, his abilities, and perhaps his character. "You're stronger than I thought," Alex said, smiling, "and smarter too." She made a soft sound, almost like a hum. Alex took it as a positive sign. Slowly, he taught her simple gestures, pointing to water, nodding for yes, shaking for no. It was a small start, but it was communication. Even without words, they were learning each other's cues. Night fell, and the storm arrived. Winds howled outside the cave, carrying dust and debris. Alex kept watch, sitting close to her and holding a small light. She stayed still, but every now and then she made a clicking sound or shifted slightly, testing the boundaries of trust. Alex responded with calm gestures, showing her he was not afraid, that he would not abandon her. The storm raged through the night, but inside the cave, there was a fragile sense of safety. Alex knew the next day would bring more challenges, finding supplies, avoiding predators, and perhaps encountering other members of her species. But he also knew something else. This alien, left behind and abandoned, had now found someone who would not give up on her. In that moment, as the wind howled outside and the storm battered the rocky walls, Alex felt a connection stronger than fear. He understood that being human meant more than curiosity or intelligence. It meant courage, compassion, and the willingness to act even when the odds were against you. When morning arrived, the storm had passed, leaving the plain glistening with moisture and the air sharp and fresh. Alex helped the alien to her feet again, supporting her carefully. They needed to move, to find supplies and perhaps a safer long-term shelter. But for now, he let her take a few steps on her own. She did, cautiously, trusting him enough to follow his lead. Alex smiled. This was only the beginning of their journey. She was wounded and abandoned, yes, but she had found someone who would not turn away. And in that realization, both of them found a spark of hope. The first step toward survival, trust, and perhaps something even greater. As they prepared to leave the cave, Alex checked his scanner. There were faint signals in the distance, possible signs of her people, or perhaps more danger. He did not yet know. But he knew one thing with certainty. He would face whatever came with courage, resourcefulness, and a determination that humans were known for across the galaxy. And as they stepped out into the world side by side, the alien warrior looked at him once more, her eyes reflecting the sunlight and something else, an unspoken recognition that she was no longer alone. The sun hung low in the sky, painting the horizon with shades of gold and orange. The winds had calmed since the storm passed, leaving the air sharp and cool. Alex guided the alien warrior across the plain, carefully helping her step over jagged rocks and patches of strange vegetation. Her movements were slow and cautious, but there was something in the way she followed him that made Alex's heart feel lighter. She trusted him, at least enough to keep moving. They needed water, food, and a place where she could heal properly. Alex spotted a small cluster of rock formations not far away. From a distance, they looked like caves, partially hidden and high enough to offer a safe vantage point. "That should work," he said, pointing toward them. The alien tilted her head, watching him carefully. Alex smiled softly. "We're going there. It's safe." "I promise." The walk was slow, and every few steps, Alex would pause to let her rest. She did not speak his language, and he could not understand hers, but communication was happening in a different way, through gestures, expressions, and careful observation. She would glance at him, then at the path ahead, and he would gently guide her. In this silent conversation, a fragile bond was forming. As they approached the rock formations, Alex heard a soft rustle behind them. He froze. There was movement, subtle but deliberate, among the tall grass. Alex crouched slightly, signaling her to stay quiet. The alien followed his gesture, sinking low to the ground despite the pain in her leg. From the grass emerged a small group of creatures, no taller than a human child, but with sharp claws and bright eyes that reflected the light. They were scavengers, quick and unpredictable, clearly drawn to the scent of food and life. Alex's heart pounded. These creatures were not hostile in the same way predators were, but they could still be dangerous, especially to someone wounded. Alex scanned his surroundings, looking for an advantage. He picked up a long stick and waved it slowly, trying to appear larger. He also grabbed a small pouch of dried food from his pack and tossed it toward the creatures. The rustling grew louder as they scrambled for the food. Using the distraction, Alex gently guided the alien warrior behind a large boulder. She crouched, watching the creatures with wary eyes. "They won't hurt us if we stay calm," Alex whispered, though he wasn't sure she understood the words. She clicked softly, almost like a hum, and rested against the rock. Alex realized that she was learning from him, not just how to survive physically, but how to read situations, assess threats, and respond. After the creatures had scattered, Alex continued toward the caves. "Almost there," he said, smiling as he spotted the entrance. He led her inside, carefully checking the ground for loose rocks and sharp edges. Once they were inside, he helped her sit on a flat stone and pulled out the remaining supplies from his pack. "We need water," he said, pointing to a small pouch filled with liquid. She tilted her head, observing him closely. He offered her a sip, and after a moment's hesitation, she drank. Her eyes met his, and for a brief moment, Alex felt as if a silent thank you had passed between them. Next came food. Alex handed her a small portion of dried fruits and protein bars. She sniffed it carefully, then nibbled. Her eyes brightened slightly as she tasted it, and Alex smiled. Small victories like this reminded him why humans were capable of forming bonds even with those very different from themselves. Patience, empathy, and a willingness to help were universal tools. As she ate, Alex tried a new approach to communication. He pulled out a small notebook and a pencil. "We need to talk," he said, drawing simple shapes. A circle for safety, a triangle for danger, a square for food. He pointed to each shape as he spoke. She tilted her head again, clicking softly. He repeated the process several times, adding gestures to reinforce the meaning. To his delight, she began to respond. When he pointed to the circle, she pressed her hand to her chest. When he pointed to the triangle, she held up a clawed finger toward the entrance of the cave. It was slow, but progress was being made. Alex felt a surge of hope. Communication, even limited, was possible. Trust, he realized, was the bridge between species, and they were crossing it together. Night fell over the rock formations, and Alex made a small fire using flint and dry sticks. The alien warrior watched with fascination, her eyes reflecting the dancing flames. He offered her warmth, and she allowed him to drape a cloth over her shoulders. The firelight made the cave feel safe, a tiny sanctuary in a vast, dangerous world. As they rested, Alex thought about what had brought them here. She had been abandoned, left wounded in a world that had no room for her. Yet now, she was not alone. Humans had a reputation for curiosity, exploration, and bravery. But in this moment, she was learning another side. Humans could care, protect, and persevere even when there was no reward, even when danger loomed. The next morning, Alex woke to the sound of soft clicks. The alien warrior was awake, observing him. He smiled and held out a hand. She hesitated, then placed her smaller hand in his. It was a simple gesture, but to Alex, it meant everything. Trust had deepened overnight, and with it, the possibility of understanding each other grew stronger. They needed a plan. Alex knew that staying in the cave indefinitely was not an option. Her people might come looking, or enemies might follow. He decided they would move toward a neutral outpost he had read about in his research, a place where different species could seek aid without fear of attack. It was far, but it offered hope. "Can you walk?" he asked gently. She hesitated, then nodded slowly. Alex helped her to her feet. Step by step, she followed him, leaning on his arm when necessary. Her strength was returning, but he had to remain vigilant. The terrain was unpredictable, with hidden cliffs and unstable ground. Along the way, they encountered more wildlife. Some were curious but harmless. Others, like the scavengers from the day before, could be dangerous. Alex guided her through each encounter, showing her when to hide, when to move slowly, and when to observe quietly. She responded with remarkable intelligence, learning quickly from each situation. By midday, they reached a river with clear water. Alex helped her drink and showed her how to fill her small container. She observed carefully, mimicking his actions. It was progress, another step toward understanding each other. While she rested, Alex explored the area for edible plants. He found several safe options and brought them back. She examined them with interest, then ate cautiously. Alex smiled, proud of their small victories. Every step of progress reinforced the human ability to adapt, teach, and inspire trust across differences. As evening approached, Alex noticed something in the distance, faint lights flickering on the horizon. He frowned. They could be from her people, or they could be hostile forces. He decided they would approach carefully, using the terrain to stay hidden until he understood what awaited them. The alien warrior noticed his tension and clicked softly. Alex realized she was communicating concern, a gesture of awareness and understanding. He smiled. "We'll be careful," he whispered. "Together." That night, they camped in a small hollow near the river. Alex built a fire, and she watched quietly, no longer tense, no longer fearful. He offered her warmth and protection, and she accepted it. For the first time since he found her, she allowed herself to rest fully. In the quiet of the night, Alex thought about the journey ahead. Communication was growing, trust was building, and slowly she was learning to rely on him, not just for survival, but for hope. Humans were not just explorers or fighters. They were problem solvers, caregivers, and allies in ways that other species might underestimate. He realized that she, too, was teaching him. Patience, observation, and understanding were crucial. Humans had courage and empathy, but they also needed to listen, watch, and adapt. Together, they were discovering a partnership neither had expected. By dawn, they were ready to continue. The alien warrior stood with Alex's support, her posture stronger than the day before. They faced the rising sun together, a symbol of hope and resilience. The path ahead was uncertain, full of potential danger and unknown challenges. Yet in that moment, both understood something powerful. Together, they could face the galaxy. Alex held out his hand once more. She placed hers in it firmly this time. Not just trust, but a connection. Not just survival, but a bond that crossed species, worlds, and experiences. Humanity, he realized, had a way of leaving marks on others, not through force, but through courage, empathy, and the willingness to act when it mattered most. And so, they began the next leg of their journey, toward safety, toward understanding, and toward a future neither of them could yet imagine, but both were determined to reach together. The morning air was cool and crisp as Alex and the alien warrior began their journey toward the distant outpost. The terrain was rough, rocky hills, deep ravines, and patches of strange, sharp vegetation that threatened to trip or cut them. Yet step by step they moved forward. The warrior leaned on Alex when needed, her small hand gripping his tightly. She still did not speak his language, but her trust in him had grown immeasurably. Alex had spent the previous night planning their route. He had studied old maps of Neareth 4 and remembered details from his research, a series of natural ridges that could provide cover from both predators and hostile patrols. They would move through those ridges, using the terrain to their advantage. The journey began quietly. Birds with iridescent feathers called out from the cliffs above, and small creatures scuttled among the rocks. Alex kept a careful watch, his instincts sharpened by the dangers they had already faced. After an hour of walking, they reached the first ridge. From there, they could see the open plains below. Alex noticed something that made his stomach tighten, a group of armored figures moving across the plains. Their shapes were humanoid, but not human. He suspected they were soldiers from the warrior's own species, possibly searching for survivors. "We need to stay hidden," Alex whispered. He gestured for the warrior to follow him down a narrow crevice in the rocks. She complied immediately, moving with surprising agility despite her injuries. They crouched in the shadow of the rocks, watching the figures below. Alex studied their movements, noting the pattern of their patrol. It seemed they were systematic but slow, not expecting anyone to travel so openly. He realized that with careful timing, they could slip past without being detected. After a tense hour, the path below cleared. Alex guided the warrior down the ridge and across the plain, keeping low and moving slowly. Every step was measured, every movement deliberate. The alien warrior followed his lead, her trust evident in the way she mirrored his actions. Halfway across the plain, they encountered a shallow river. The current was swift but manageable. Alex helped her step carefully on the slippery rocks, showing her where to place her feet. When a small wave nearly knocked her off balance, he caught her arm, holding her steady. She looked at him, her eyes wide, and gave a soft, almost musical click. Alex smiled. That sound had become their unspoken language of gratitude and acknowledgement. After crossing the river, they entered a dense forest. The trees were tall, their leaves shimmering faintly in the sunlight. The forest offered cover, but it also hid potential dangers. Alex moved cautiously, keeping his senses alert for predators and hidden traps. He taught the warrior to follow quietly, to observe shadows, and to respond to sounds in the environment. She learned quickly, showing impressive adaptability and intelligence. Midway through the forest, they heard a noise, a soft rustling in the underbrush. Alex froze and raised a hand. The warrior crouched, her eyes scanning the area. From the shadows emerged a large predator, its sleek body moving silently, eyes fixed on them. It was faster and more dangerous than the scavengers they had seen before. Alex thought quickly. Using a small flare from his pack, he threw it toward a nearby tree, creating a burst of light and noise. The predator flinched and hesitated, giving Alex the chance to guide the warrior behind a thick tree trunk. They held their breath as the predator investigated the flare, sniffing the air and growling softly. After a tense few minutes, the predator lost interest and disappeared into the forest. Alex exhaled, feeling the weight of relief. "That was close," he whispered. The warrior pressed her hand against his arm, a silent gesture of acknowledgement and trust. As night approached, they found a safe clearing to rest. Alex gathered dry leaves and branches to make a bed for the warrior, shielding her from the cold ground. She watched him carefully as he worked, clicking softly. He smiled. "You'll sleep well tonight," he said gently. She relaxed against the bedding, her breathing slowing as she rested. During the night, Alex stayed alert, keeping watch over the forest. He thought about how humans had the ability to survive and adapt in dangerous situations, not through brute strength alone, but through intelligence, courage, and creativity. He had used tools, observation, and quick thinking to keep both himself and the warrior safe. That combination of skills, he realized, was uniquely human. The next morning, they resumed their journey. The path led them to a rocky canyon, narrow and treacherous. The warrior struggled slightly on the uneven ground, but Alex guided her hand in hand, pointing out safe footholds and showing her how to balance on loose rocks. Step by step, they navigated the canyon, the walls towering above them like ancient guardians. Suddenly, they heard voices, sharp and commanding, carried on the wind. Alex froze. He signaled the warrior to hide behind a large boulder. Peering around it, he saw a patrol of armored soldiers, clearly looking for survivors. His heart raced, but he remained calm. Panicking now would only put them at risk. He whispered, "We'll move slowly, quietly. Follow my lead." The warrior nodded, understanding through his tone and gestures. Alex led the way, keeping low, moving silently along the edge of the canyon wall. The soldiers passed just a few meters away, unaware of their presence. The warrior's hand tightened around his, and Alex squeezed it gently, reassuring her. Once the patrol moved out of sight, they continued. The canyon opened into a wide plateau, offering a clearer view of the terrain ahead. From this vantage point, Alex could see the outpost in the distance, a small cluster of structures, protected and neutral, a place where they could find help and safety. The journey was far from over. They had to cross open plains and avoid further dangers, but the warrior's strength had returned significantly. She moved more confidently, leaning less on Alex, though she still allowed him to guide and protect her. Their communication had improved, relying on gestures, sounds, and subtle movements. Each step strengthened their bond and deepened their trust. As they approached a narrow bridge over a deep chasm, Alex assessed the structure. It looked unstable, the metal worn and rusted. He knew they had to cross carefully. He tested the first section, pressing down gently with his foot. It held. Step by step, he led the warrior across, supporting her when she faltered. Halfway through, a loud creak echoed, and a section of the bridge gave way slightly. Alex reacted instantly, catching her arm and pulling her to safety. She clung to him, her eyes wide with fear and trust. "We're okay," he whispered, steadying her. Her hand pressed against his chest, a silent gesture of gratitude. They continued slowly, finally reaching the other side safely. By evening, they had made significant progress. The outpost was within sight, its lights faint but welcoming in the distance. Alex smiled. They had faced storms, predators, hostile patrols, and treacherous terrain, and yet they had survived. They had done it together. As they rested under a small rock overhang for the night, Alex reflected on what had brought them this far. The warrior had been abandoned, left behind by her own people, injured and alone. Yet humanity had shown her something new: courage, compassion, and cleverness. Through every challenge, Alex had used intelligence and empathy to keep her alive. And she had learned to trust him, to follow his lead, and even to adapt to his methods. The night was quiet, except for the soft hum of distant wind. Alex watched the warrior sleep, thinking about the journey that still lay ahead. The outpost promised safety, but the path there remained uncertain. Yet he felt confident. Humans were capable of facing danger, thinking creatively, and forming bonds that transcended differences. That combination, bravery, intelligence, and empathy, was what had brought them this far, and what would carry them to safety. Morning came, and they prepared for the final stretch. Alex helped the warrior to her feet. Her posture was strong now, her steps more assured. The bond between them was unspoken but powerful. Together they would reach the outpost, face whatever challenges came next, and perhaps change the way her people, and she herself, saw humans. As they moved forward, Alex glanced at the rising sun. It lit the path ahead, highlighting the dangers but also illuminating the possibilities. Step by step, they advanced, each movement a testament to human determination and compassion. And in the warrior's eyes, Alex saw something he had hoped for, a flicker of hope, trust, and perhaps even admiration. Their journey was far from over. But for the first time since the warrior had been abandoned, both of them knew they were not alone. Together, they were strong. Together, they could face anything. And so, they continued toward the outpost, wounded but determined, weary but unbroken, two unlikely companions bound by trust, courage, and the human spirit. The outpost lay ahead, small but sturdy, perched on a rocky hill and surrounded by a protective wall. Smoke rose from chimneys, and faint lights glimmered from windows. It was a safe place, neutral territory where different species could find help without fear of attack. For Alex and the alien warrior, it was the promise of relief after days of peril. As they approached, Alex scanned the surrounding area carefully. There were no signs of patrols or predators nearby. The path to the gate was clear, but he did not let his guard down. "Almost there," he whispered. The warrior walked beside him, her steps steady and her posture stronger than it had been in days. She glanced at him, her eyes reflecting trust and something deeper, recognition that he had kept his promise. The gate of the outpost opened as they neared, revealing guards from different species. Alex raised his hands in a universal gesture of peace. "We come in peace," he said clearly, his tone calm and steady. The warrior stayed behind him at first, hesitant, but Alex gestured for her to follow. Slowly, she stepped forward, watching the guards carefully. A human researcher stepped out from the building behind the gate. He wore a similar uniform to Alex's, and his eyes widened in surprise. "Alex? Is that you? And who is this?" "She's injured," Alex said, carefully keeping the warrior close to him. "I found her abandoned on Neareth 4. We need help." The researcher hesitated, clearly unsure how to respond to the alien warrior. But Alex did not wait for approval. He guided her into the outpost, helping her onto a cot in the medical bay. The warrior remained cautious, her large eyes scanning the room, but she did not resist. Medical personnel immediately began examining her injuries. The broken arm had been stabilized, and the wound on her side was cleaned and treated further. Alex watched closely, ready to assist if needed. The warrior's breathing steadied as she rested, the tension in her body slowly fading. While the medical team worked, Alex stepped aside to speak with the outpost commander, a tall alien with silver markings on its face. "She was left behind," Alex explained. "I found her injured. I carried her here for safety. I only want to help her recover." The commander studied Alex carefully. "It is unusual for a human to intervene in such a situation," the alien said. "But your actions saved a life. We will allow her to remain under medical care, and you will be recognized for your bravery." Alex nodded, his heart swelling with relief. Humans were often underestimated by other species, especially when it came to courage and resourcefulness. But his actions had proven something important, that even in a galaxy filled with danger and mistrust, humanity could make a difference. Back in the medical bay, the warrior opened her eyes fully. She looked at Alex, her gaze steady. She clicked softly, a sound Alex had learned to understand as a form of acknowledgement or communication. He smiled gently and touched her hand. She did not pull away. In that moment, words were unnecessary. Trust had been earned, and bonds had been formed. The next day, Alex and the warrior were able to speak more freely through gestures and the small notebook he had been using. He drew pictures to explain basic concepts: safety, food, communication. She responded with clicks, hand signs, and subtle movements. Slowly, they were able to convey complex ideas to each other. "She's learning quickly," Alex said to one of the medical staff, "and she's intelligent, more than I expected." The staff member nodded. "She is a warrior. You have done well to gain her trust. Few humans could have managed what you did." Over the following days, the warrior recovered steadily. She regained her strength, practiced walking, and even learned simple communication techniques with Alex. The outpost became their temporary home, a place where danger could not reach them. Yet Alex knew that the real challenge lay beyond these walls. Her people might arrive, hostile forces could pursue her, and she would need to decide whether to return to them. He could not predict their reactions, but he could ensure she faced them with hope, dignity, and safety. Finally, the day came when she was ready to meet representatives from her species. Alex accompanied her to the meeting room, a neutral chamber with high ceilings and large windows. Several figures stood there, observing carefully. When they saw her, their expressions shifted between shock, relief, and suspicion. "She is alive," one of them said. "We believed she was lost." Alex stepped forward. "I found her injured and abandoned," he said calmly. "I carried her here for safety. I have done nothing but protect her." The alien studied him, clearly conflicted. Alex did not flinch. He knew humans often had to prove their worth through actions, not words. He let his deeds speak. "She is safe now," he continued, "and she is learning to communicate. She will make her own choices, but for now, she is alive because of human courage and determination." The warrior stepped forward, her posture proud and confident. She looked at the humans, then at Alex. Slowly, she made a clicking sound, then pointed at him. The room fell silent. "That means something," one of the aliens said. "It is recognition. She trusts him." Alex smiled gently. "Yes, she does." After a tense discussion, her people decided to allow her to remain under the outpost's protection for a time. Alex had shown them that humans were not weak, reckless, or insignificant. They were courageous, intelligent, and capable of compassion that could save lives in ways other species might not expect. In the following days, Alex continued to work with the warrior. He taught her more about human concepts, shared stories of Earth, and listened as she described her experiences. Communication improved every day, and their bond grew stronger. She began to see humans in a new light, not as primitive or weak, but as clever, brave, and capable of inspiring trust. Alex, in turn, learned about resilience, courage, and wisdom from her. Together, they discovered that the universe was full of challenges, but also full of potential for connection and understanding. One afternoon, as they walked in the outpost garden, she stopped and looked at Alex. Slowly, she extended her hand and he took it. She made a series of soft clicks, almost like laughter. Alex chuckled. "I think that means you're ready," he said. The outpost commander approached. "She has recovered," he said, "and she has chosen to acknowledge your efforts." He nodded at Alex. "Humans may be young in the galaxy, but some, like you, show strength, courage, and wisdom beyond expectation." Alex felt a surge of pride, not for himself, but for humanity. Humans were often underestimated, yet they had qualities that could change outcomes, inspire trust, and even save lives. That realization, simple yet profound, was what HFY truly meant. Finally, it was time for the warrior to decide her path. She looked at Alex, then at her people. Then back at Alex. Slowly, she clicked and gestured toward him. The meaning was clear. She wanted him to remain a part of her journey, not as a guide, but as a trusted friend and ally. Alex nodded gently. "Then we'll face the future together," he said. Her people, seeing her choice, did not resist. They understood that she had found a bond that transcended species, a connection forged in adversity, courage, and trust. It was rare, perhaps unprecedented, but it was undeniable. As the days passed, Alex prepared to return to Earth, knowing that the warrior was safe and empowered to make her own decisions. She had recovered fully, her strength and confidence renewed. She was no longer abandoned or vulnerable. On the day of his departure, she approached him. Slowly, she extended her hand, and he took it. A click, a gesture, a look. They had their own language now, formed through shared trials, trust, and understanding. Alex smiled. "Goodbye, for now," he said softly. She pressed her hand to his chest, a final gesture of respect and gratitude. It was more than words could convey. It was a recognition of courage, empathy, and human ingenuity. As Alex boarded the shuttle to leave Neareth 4, he looked out the window at the outpost, the warrior standing tall and proud, surrounded by her people. He knew that humans had made a difference here, not through force, not through power, but through patience, intelligence, courage, and compassion. That was humanity at its best. The shuttle lifted off, carrying him back to Earth. Below, the warrior waved, a gesture that transcended words. Alex smiled, knowing that this experience would stay with him forever. Humans might be young in the galaxy, but their spirit, determination, and empathy could inspire change, forge trust, and save lives. And somewhere on Neareth 4, a once abandoned warrior had discovered a truth that would stay with her forever. Humans were courageous, clever, and capable of greatness. They were not just observers in the galaxy, they were a force for hope, a bridge across species, and a reminder that even in the darkest times, kindness and bravery could light the way. The journey had ended, but the story of trust, courage, and HFY spirit would continue. Not just for Alex and the warrior, but for humanity in the galaxy.